What's going on, everybody? How's it going? Hope y'all can hear me. Hoping it's not echoing or doing crazy robot things or whatever. Open. What's going on, everyone? Hope y'all are doing good. Whoever hopped in. Hope y'all are having a good night or morning, day, whatever it is for you guys right now, time zone wise. I'm gonna start the reading or continuing the reading in just a sec. Just want to open this little thing real quick. So far from where we left off, I believe Sakata is now with Ryo Futaba, and he's going to speak to her about what's going on with him right now because he's having some new issues that are happening with him right now that are causing for concern. So he's, going to her. It's seeming like it's another adolescent syndrome type deal. So he's going to his go-to gal so she can kind of figure out what's going on, or I don't know, get her 2 cents and maybe give her theory on what's going on with him. All right. I'm going to go ahead and start off because I've been itching to read, or at least to continue reading this for a good while. I'm on page 41, 184. Okay. Not too bad. I didn't think I was that far into it. So we're about 20% of the way through, almost a quarter of the way through. Not too bad. Excuse me. Right, let's start off. So, the last thing that happened, I believe, was Sakata noticed that, after the situation that happened with the little Mai Sakurajima, him seeing her and then noticing that she was acting and speaking a lot in the same ways of Mai Sakurajima when she was younger, at least when the young Mai Sakurajima would act and stuff and her roles and everything that she play on TV. Her TV roles and stuff. That's kind of how the Little Mai sounded. So it seemed like it was kind of like um, Little Mai was Mai Sakurajima in her acting stuff when she was younger. And then next thing you know, Sakata ended up getting a scar on his stomach for some reason. So of course those two weird things happening at the same time made it, very apparent that those two things are kind of linked, or at least it seems at the moment, and it's some sort of adolescent syndrome that's going on right now. But all right. That's odd, Rio said. I thought you weren't a pedophile. This was what he got for telling her about actually encountering the mini Mai from his dream. I'm not. Sakata sat down on a stool, doing up the buttons of his shirt. He'd removed it to show her the scars. The day after the graduation, Monday, March 2nd, the day before Hinamatsuri, classes were over, and the baseball team was yelling on the field outside the windows. Typical afternoon sounds. They'd just held the graduation ceremony the day before, but the school itself was back to normal. It was a bit quieter without the third years around, but not enough to feel weird. Sakata had rolled into school like always, taken classes like normal, and swung by the science lab just like he usually did. Third years had been largely absent from school since optional attendance began in February anyway, so he'd naturally acclimated to their disappearance. He'd never spoken to any third years but Mai to begin with, so their graduation didn't really hit him the same way as others. While Rio put her thoughts in order, Sakata did his best to not distract her and ended up staring vacantly at the bubbles on the side of the beaker. The flame of the alcohol burner swayed as he breathed. When the water came to a boil, Rio silently put the cap on, extinguishing the flame. Situationally speaking, it seems safe to assume the cause lies with you or Mai Sakurajima. She used a glass rod to stir her mug of coffee, then added milk, watching it swirl with anticipation. She took a sip and then put it back down on the table. Rio looked up, scanning his face for clues, checking to see if he had any idea why one of them would be in adolescent syndrome mode. I've got the cutest girlfriend in the world, so what worries could I have? The only hard part was all this studying he was doing to grant her wish. Do you think it's her? Not that she's aware of. She and her mom don't exactly get along, so I assume that was it, but something suggested it isn't. Apparently, they're taking baby steps towards mending things. Oh, okay, maybe. Mai had voluntarily introduced Sakata to her mother the day before. She talked as though her issues with her mother weren't going anywhere but to him. It felt like the passage of time was slowly leading them anywhere but to him. It felt, yeah, oh wait, never mind. It felt like the passage of time was slowly leading them in the right direction. Sure, the bad blood between them would probably never go away completely, but they no longer felt like something raw enough to cause adolescent syndrome. I had the strength to handle the emotions her mother dredged up, was aware of her own hang-ups, and was trying to move toward closure, like going from stark black and white to shades of gray. Sakata considered that a good thing and likely the only real resolution anyone could expect. So might have to do, maybe, has to do with Mai and the whole situation that happened with her mom having a new like kid, like as I think she's like the agent of a new kid or something like that. I remember he brought that up, or Mai brought that up at some point, and she seemed really kind of annoyed at it, at least a little bit. Because it kind of brought up memories of Mai being a kid, having her mom as like an agent and everything. So that might be why it's happening. Maybe it's just like bringing back, yeah, like the memories of her being a little kid again, being in that acting role and stuff. But we'll see what happens with that. So Mai knew full well her relationship with her mother would never be pure and simple and clean again. She'd accepted that and the natural implications. That was why Sakata felt she'd be okay. So then the problem is with you. Like I said, nope. Maybe you're scared of being this happy. Rio took a sip of coffee. She didn't seem all that concerned. Do you really think that would cause adolescent syndrome? I don't see why not. All kinds of fears lurk in the hearts of man. Stands to reason some are afraid of losing what they have. Rio shook her head, like that would never apply to her, but I'm planning on becoming even happier. So I've got nothing to be scared of. That's optimistic, she said, but there was a hint of a smile. There was no real spite in her quip, perhaps a raised eyebrow or two, but obviously she wished him the best with that. But there's still the kid who looks like Sakurajima, Rio said, getting things back on track. She looked a bit tense. Only you saw her. Yeah, Sakurajima was there, but didn't. Shit, what's going on, Kartik? How's it going, my dude? And thanks, thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, I just saw that I hit it the other day. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Average enjoyer, what's going on, man? I hope you're doing well. As I hope you're having a good night. Sorry, um, but yeah, I've been enjoying it so far. So far so good. I think it's kind of I'm just trying to figure out what's going on with it. What's I keep trying to think like, okay, what's happening? What's the situation? What's causing for the adolescent syndrome? I'm hoping it's not like a replay of like because Sakata has another scar on his body or something. I was just like, oh dang, it's like the Shoko situation all over again. But I know it's different circumstances that's causing for it. So I'm just kind of curious to see what's gonna happen with that. I didn't think it was gonna cause for another scar on him, but so far so good. I've been enjoying it a lot so far. I didn't think we were gonna run into Mai Sakurajima's mom that quickly since starting this. Um, Noticing the what was it the Mai's or Sakata's mom like going to be released from the hospital, I thought was pretty cool too. And the fact that Kaide was like, "Yo, I want to see my mom," and everything, just that kind of going to be happening pretty soon too, has got me excited. So there's a lot of things that kind of expected to happen or we were hoping to happen are kind of coming to fruition now, which is pretty cool. Um, but my bad, I kind of stopped in the reading right now. But let me see where I left off. Where was? She said she was really okay. He said, "Oh yeah, she looked a bit tense. Only you saw her. Yeah, Sakurajima was there, but didn't. She was really trying to be clear about this. That's right," Sakata said with a nod. "If that means they both can't exist at once, or can't both be perceived at once, then that means Sakurajima and the knapsack kid are bound by fate somehow. Like how we couldn't observe both of you at the same time." Exactly, that's right. I remember mentioning that. I was like, so it's kind of like the Futaba Rio thing where you couldn't run into both of them at the same time, like how we couldn't see you at the same time or observe both of you at the same time, Futaba, or how we never saw a big and little Shoko together either. Ah, and I have no idea how that relates to the new scar on your side, Asasagawa. You are my sole hope here, or sole hope there. If you're clutching at straws, maybe run it by Shoko. I suppose that's one course of action. She has memories of many potential futures after all. That's why I don't want to ask. Because she flew off to Okinawa without warning you. Yep, if she'd intentionally not mentioned it, then it just wasn't worth mentioning. Something minor enough that he would definitely be able to handle it on his own. But if that wasn't it, and Shoko had never come across anything like this in all her futures, then he really couldn't ask. It would just make her worry. Makinohara is busy living her best life and he didn't want to interfere. She deserves to be happier than anyone. Are you allowed to rank her above Sakurajima? Mai and I will be more than happy enough together. They'd promised they would be, and even if they hadn't, Sakata would have made it happen anyway. And then this is no time to be getting weird scars on you. I know. He glanced at the clock above the chalkboard. It was almost 4. You got a date? Rio asked. Something like that. He stood up and shouldered his backpack. Don't cheat too often, Rio said. Or Rio called. And with that, Sakata left the science lab behind. Alright, cool. So it was still light out as he left. All winter, the skies to the west had been turning red at this hour. They were a certain blue, heralding the turn of the season. Sakata made the short hike to Shichigahama Station. The train pulled in just as he arrived, and he hopped aboard and took it back to Fujisawa. Mingling with middle-aged sightseers, foreign tourists, students, and kids with knapsacks, he passed through the gates and headed across the bridge toward the JR station. A 20-something man was busking in the square outside the electronics store. A circle of students in uniform had formed around him. The high school girls walking in front of Sakata were chatting about it. A Kirishima cover. He's good. Let's stop and listen. They joined the group. Going on, Cooley? How you doing, man? How do you think they would adapt the volumes after the movie? Obviously, very vague since it's still far away. I think I made a video kind of on like talking a little bit on that. I think that the way that they're going to adapt it after the movie is going to be because they're making two movies, of course. They're making the first one based around the sister venturing out light novel, and then they're making the second movie based on this light novel here, the Knapsack Kid one. After those movies, I think honestly it's gonna go into a season 2 kind of anime season like they kind of did with season 1. I think that's how they're gonna do it because in the video that I made, I mentioned that um, these two light novels that we have here are kind of like wrapping up their high school stories, like Volume 8 kind of wrapped up. It touched on a lot of Kaide stuff, but it ultimately, like at the end of it, wrapped up Mai Sakurajima's kind of high school life and stuff. She graduated at the end of it. And then at the end of this one here, I'm assuming that Sakuta possibly is going to end up graduating as well from here. Because I remember the creator or the official Bunny Girl Senpai Twitter mentioned like, okay, these two stories here are like the completion of the high school arc or high school stories and stuff. So I'm assuming Sakata's gonna graduate at the end of this one or something along those lines, and then after that there's a time skip that happens where they're both in university, Sakata and Mai. So I think season two is gonna kick off with them being in university and then kind of showing them after that time skip happens and stuff. Because I don't I didn't think that it would work if it was like, okay, a season two happens and it included these two stories, the sister venturing out, and then this one, and then like in the middle of it, it would cut over and do a time skip in the middle of it, and then be, the university life stuff that they would be going through. Because these two stories, the volume 8 and volume 9, I don't think that it would be enough to stretch out into a full season. I think it would only maybe cover like 4 or 5 episodes or something like that. And then the rest of like the 6 or like the 7 or 8 episodes would have to be, like volume 10, 11, or 12 or something like that. That's why I think after the movies, it's going to be an actual season two, but just like them being older and being in university and stuff, which I'm super excited for if it does end up happening that way. I honestly think it will, but we'll see what happens with it for sure, because that could definitely like not happen, and it can go a different route. Maybe they make more movies with it, but I doubt it. I think by the time that ends up happening, there will be more light novels out. Maybe the crazy, popularity of anime movies will kind of die down a little bit, and they'll just, make another season. But like I said, I think that's a little bit far away though. All right. But yeah, carrying on from this one, we're on page 46 right now. All right, so it was still light out as he left. All winter, the skies to the west had been turning red at this hour. They were a certain blue, heralding the turn of the season. Sakata made the short hike to Shichigahama Station. The train pulled in just as he arrived, and he hopped aboard, and it took him back to Fujisawa. Mingling with the middle-aged sightseers, foreign tourists, students, and kids with knapsacks, he passed through the gates and headed across the bridge toward the JR station. A 20-something man was busking in the square outside the electronics store. A circle of students in uniform had formed around him. The high school girls walking in front of Sakata were chatting about it. A Toko Kirishima cover. Oh, Toko. The first time I read that, I didn't even notice who they were even talking about. Toko Kirishima, if you guys don't know, is the girl that is on the cover of volume 11. So the one that's like wearing that kind of like, looks like she's kind of wearing like a maid outfit or something like that. She has like the blue like undershirt or whatever, and like the white apron. She's gonna be like the main kind of girl in volume 11 apparently, which is pretty cool. When I do end up making like kind of videos talking about volume 8 and volume 9, I really wanted to mention like the fact that we're already learning about Toko Kirishima before we're even getting anywhere close to volume 11, which is really cool. So where's the Japanese light novels at right now? Right now they're at volume 12. So volume 12 came out in December. The main girl in that, her name is Sara Himeji or Sarah Himeji, and she's apparently one of Sakata's. I won't even say it. Never mind. um, yeah, I don't want to like get like too into spoiler territory. But yeah, she's affiliated with Sakata. She knows Sakata in some way, but just know that Sakata's older and she's kind of younger. Not super young like little Shoko or anything like that, but she is like I'd say like maybe Kaide's age or maybe Sakata's age now or something like that. But yeah. Bunny Girl Senpai is one of my top three anime. What's going on, Grease Monk? Hope you're doing good, man. But yeah, Bunny Girl Senpai is one of my favorites too. I don't know if it's in my top three personally. I mean, I love Bunny Girl Senpai and I talk about it a lot and stuff. But my top three, it's definitely in. I'd say maybe like my top 10 or top 5 maybe. But My favorite anime is One Piece. My second favorite is probably, excuse me, it's probably like maybe Vinland Saga or uh, maybe like Steins Gate or something like that. One of those two. Those are probably like my top three. But Bunny Girl Senpai is probably like in my top five or maybe like top 10 or something like that. I love it. But yeah, let's jump over to Good Volume. It does a good job of closing part of the story and developing Sakuta's character. Also has very strong parallels to Volume 1. Nice. That's good to hear, man. I'm glad that you enjoyed the heck out of it. Yeah, I can't wait to, keep reading it. Like it's gotten my attention a lot. There's been multiple parts where I've been like, what the fuck? Like what's going on here? Or like, oh damn, like it's like hooking me in a lot with some of the different things that are happening and surprising me at some of the stuff that we've been kind of theorizing was going to happen or maybe like hoping was going to happen and we're like, oh shit, like this is actually like going down, like oh damn, which is crazy. um yeah, yeah, man, I can't wait to get to the time skip stuff too, which is gonna be happening pretty freaking soon. I'm kind of glad that I'm doing the live streams and like read through of this now, because the 10th light novel, when the time skip happens, the 10th light novel in English is gonna be coming out in a couple of weeks. So I think on March 21st it's supposed to come out. So I'm gonna have like all this, volume 9 content and stuff in here pretty fresh in my head by the time volume 10 ends up coming out, and then I could just jump right into the next one, without, having to have a big gap in time between it and stuff. Like probably some people that read the light novel immediately are probably gonna have to either reread it to remember some stuff to jump into it, or have to remember all of that stuff, or they're going to jump into it without rereading it and be like, oh crap, I forgot all of these things that went down in the previous light novels, that might be relevant to the volume 10. But yeah, we're going to be getting to see that stuff pretty soon because time skip happens in volume 10. So that's super cool. I can't wait for it. Um, oh, okay, it's a bit confusing. Good way. Yeah, there's some moments in it that I was like, damn, like what's happening here? Like what's going on? But yeah, like the more I read it, the more I'm like, okay, this might be what's going on. Like I kind of have maybe an idea of what's happening with the whole my little my thing, but we'll see what's going on with that. I personally think maybe it has to do with Mai and maybe her mom, because she mentioned that her mom brought over another like kid, actress or whatever that reminded her of herself when she was younger. And she's like the agent of that little girl now and not of Mai, and maybe that's bringing up some feelings on Mai Sakurajima side. But yeah, that's what I think. But we'll see what ends up happening with that. All right, a Toko Kitashima cover. He's good. Let's stop and listen. Wait, what? Is Toko Kirishima a guy? Or is that mistranslation or something? That's weird. I thought Toko was a girl. Yeah, yeah, I thought that was a girl. Okay, maybe it was mistranslation or something. I just got it mixed up. Let's stop and listen. Oh, okay, okay. A Toko Kirishima cover. My bad. I completely didn't even realize that they said cover. So it's a guy doing a cover of a Toko Kirishima song. Let's stop and listen. They joined the group. Toko Kirishima was a an artist Mai had told him about, the next big thing apparently, that all her stuff on some video site, if she was getting covered on the street like this, he had definitely hit the big league, but he had places to be, so he simply glanced at the busker in passing and moved on. He turned left at the electronics store and went down the stairs. His path home led to the right, but like Rio implied, he had a date. On the street below, he followed the road to the restaurant he worked at. Inside, a cute waitress with a fluffy short hair called out a greeting, but her smile waited or wilted when she saw him. Oh, it's just you, Senpai. Tomoe Koga rolled her eyes at him. She was a year below him at school. I'm a customer today, he said. I know, your name wasn't on the shift list. Don't, don't what? Don't act like I was specifically checking your shifts. I just wondered who was working today. I didn't imply any of that, but inside your head, you definitely made it weird. Well, that's just what teenage boys do. Oh, you're so gross. He'd made a generalization, yet she blamed him alone, giving him her most disgusted look. I just thought you were extra cute today, Koga. That I'll allow, but don't say it out loud. Then I won't think it either. I said thinking's okay. I was wondering when we were gonna start seeing more of the characters. Like just when I kicked this off or whatever, reading it, we saw or we read that Rio Futaba like just made her first appearance in this light novel. Now Koga, I was wondering when she was gonna pop up, if she was even gonna pop up at all in this one. But it's nice to see that they're throwing in a lot more of the characters and stuff now. I wonder if like Kunimi is gonna pop up at some point or some of the other ones. While they were going at it, the door behind him opened up. Another customer entered. Welcome, table for one? Tomoe asked, her smile back on. It's now two, Miwako Tomobe said Weihua, giving Sakata a mischievous wink. Miwako Tomobe, isn't that the reporter? I think. He told Tomoe, this could be a while, so she found them an out-of-the-way seat by the windows. Oh yeah, so it is the damn reporter, I'm pretty sure. I think. They ordered drinks, and Miwako got some pancakes as well. While she ate, they chatted about Sakata's college plan. Oh wait, no, wait. I think Miwako, I think she's the, damn it, Kaide's like teacher or something currently that's like trying to help them or something like that. Trying to help Kaide. She was like the one that was trying to help Kaide get into like another school or something along those lines, or maybe like her counselor or something. I can't remember. She was in volume 8. I know she was. They ordered drinks, and Miwako got some pancakes as well. While she ate, they chatted about Sakata's college plans and how Kaide was holding up. Basically, just small talk. Tomoe, I'm I'm bugging right now. I'm like, I gotta look. Hold on, one sec. I want to. I need to know if this is the same lady for sure. The hell is Miwako Tomobe? Tomobe. Is that the lady? Oh yeah, she is the one that I was talking about, the one that was helping with Sakata trying to have Kaide find another school, or which one that she was trying to work with her on getting her to another class or something like that, or like trying to get into high school or what route she was gonna take and stuff. Okay. I wanted to make sure of that. I thought she was the reporter lady for a second. Is Otogaidu in your top 10? Yeah, Otogaidu is in my top 10 actually. I love Otogaidu. Yeah, it's amazing. I can't wait till they actually start making more content for that, which is gonna be really cool. If they I know that they released a new I think they released a new Shin Light novel in Japan not that long ago, so it's like still kind of coming out with new content past season 3 stuff, which is really really cool. I thought that, once season 3 came out and it was all done, I thought season 3 was the end of it. But, it's coming out. The Shin Light novels are actually bringing more new content out, which is fucking hype. Um, I have no idea where in the story are we. I am watching because excited for Bunny Girl Senpai. You haven't read the light novels, Grease Monk? Have you not? Right now, we're in the midst of Volume 9. Right now, just to kind of give a little run through. So at the end of Volume 8, pretty much, or Volume 8 was kind of, a lot to do with Kaide and like what she was gonna do for school in the future. Um, Things of that nature. A lot of it was kind of her wanting to, like, seemingly wanting to get into. Uh, oh, you haven't read any of the light novels. Do you mind spoilers, or do you not want me to spoil you? I don't want to spoil it if you don't want to get spoiled. Sorry. You don't have any light novels. Gotcha. Um, I guess I'll throw a little info out there, but yeah, a lot of the eighth light novel is what happens after the movie. Um, a lot of the eighth light novel had to do with Sakata and Kaide. Kaide, a lot of in that light novel was kind of contemplating on like where she wanted to go or a lot of it was Kaide's plans to go to high school, and it seemed like she wanted to go to freaking goddamn Minagahara with Sakata, at least the school that he goes to, and that's what a lot of it was, and a lot of it was like struggles on her part of trying to get into it because she needed to do certain things to qualify to get into Minagahara. Like she had to improve her grades, she had to take like certain tests and stuff to pass to be able to qualify to get in. And she was like very very behind because of the fact that she's been out of school for a while. She had been studying here and there and stuff while she was at home and getting help from, I believe, from Nadaka and from Mai Sakurajima a little bit and Sakata, but it's not like full on school. Um, So she was like trying her best and like going through it to try to get into school. And then at the same time too, Sakata was like trying to plan out his future to go to university. Mai Sakurajima helping him because they ultimately wanted to go to university together. We found out that after Mai graduates, that she wants to take a year off. So because she's a year ahead of Sakata, so she's gonna graduate from high school, take a year off, and then she's gonna start university once Sakata is ready to go to university once he graduates. So that's happening. And then we find out that Kaide really doesn't want, she didn't really actually want to go to Minagahara. She only wanted to go to Minagahara because the previous Kaede, when Panda Kaede, the old one, before she gained her memories back, she wanted to go to Minagahara. That was like a goal that she wanted to do. And Kaede, the actual Kaede, the one that regained her memories, found that out, and she wanted to kind of like fulfill that duty, that kind of goal that she had and everything. It was a whole damn thing, man. That shit made me want to cry. But yeah, the way that they like told that part of the story, man, that shit hit me. Um, Sorry for my language, but that was a really damn sad part of the story, when that stuff went down. But yeah, she ultimately didn't want to go to Minagahara. She didn't know how it was gonna be, but they talked to Uzuki, who's part of the Sweet Bullet group, Nataka's friend and group member and stuff, and she ends up going to a what is it? She's currently going to a online school for high school, and that's what Kaide is pretty much going to end up doing at the end of the day. So that's what's going down, at least in that light novel. At the end of it, Mai Sakurajima graduates. Um, what is it? Shoko ends up find out that Shoko is moving away. She moved away. I can't remember where exactly, but she's moving away like kind of far. So she's like kind of out of the story now. Sadly, like the first time we really see her in the story, like for the eighth light novel, she's just like, "Yo, I'm out of here. Like I'm moving." But yeah, it's she's moving away, and then right at the end of it, they like kind of say farewell or whatever to Shoko. Sakata's on the beach and like sees her plane flying away, and then he ends up running into the little Mai, and that's what kind of happens, and it transitions into this light novel. My bad, that was kind of a long explanation. I just wanted to catch you up a little bit. Oh wait, I thought season 3 was at the end of it. Have you read the Shin Light novels? I have not read the Shin Light novels, but I have heard certain things about them. I heard some people don't like it, mainly because of Yui Gahama. And I'm like, I love Yui. That's why I'm like kind of conflicted on what's gonna happen with it because I love Yui Gahama, but I hear that she does some not so great things in the Shin Light novels. But yeah, they're they are a nice slice of life content, but they don't add much of the story in my opinion. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's supposed to be when they're in the third years of high school, I believe, and there's stuff going on with Yui. I think they're like, I don't know, her and Iroha and all kinds of stuff is going on. But yeah, no problem, Grease Monk. Right now, what's going down in here is just they're trying to figure out what's going on with the little Mai Sakurajima. Why is she popping up? Why does Sakata, he now has like a scar on his stomach now, which is probably linked to the little Mai Sakurajima popping up. We know that pretty soon after the little Mai Sakurajima popped up, the big Mai Sakurajima came, and then the little one went away, like kind of just, she was just gone. So it was kind of another situation where that those two can't exist at the same time because as soon as the big Mai popped up, the little one disappeared. It was kind of like the real Futaba thing that happened where, we couldn't see both of them at the same time. They couldn't exist at the same time. Like the Shoko thing where both of them couldn't exist at the same time either. We never saw them both at the same time like that either. So that's what's going on. And they're just trying to figure out what's happening now. Why does Sakata have the scar? Who's the cause of the adolescent syndrome? Is it Sakata because he's going through something, or is it Mai because she's going through something, or what's happening exactly with it? Yeah. All right, so let's see. While they were going at it, the door behind him opened. Another customer entered. Welcome, table for one, Tomoe asked, her smile back on. It's now two, Miwako Tomobe said, giving Sakata a mischievous wink. He told Tomoe that this could be a while, so she found him an out-of-the-way seat by the windows. They ordered drinks, and Miwako got some pancakes as well. While she ate, they chatted about Sakata's college plans and how Kaide was holding up. Basically, just small talk. Tomoe cleared away the empty plate, and they refilled their drinks, and then Sakata got down to business. This is about our mother, he began. That was why he had arranged for the two of them to meet. Your father didn't tell me much, but she's institutionalized. She's in and out these days, home recuperation, but still spending plenty of time at the hospital. It was really vague because he didn't know the details either. His father was trying not to worry them. And Sakata he had been preoccupied with the two Kaides. But apparently she's on the mend, which meant he had questions he needed to run by Miwako. Okay, the mom said she wanted to see Kaide. He was pretty sure Miwako had figured out where this was going. When he finally put it out there, she nodded slowly. Ah, and when Kaide heard, she said that she wanted to see her too, to go visit. Yeah, that makes sense. And I know it's a good thing she feels that way, but Sakata was glad that Kaede wanted to see her mother and that she said as much, but I'm just not sure it's safe to do that. He felt that that was a sad thing to admit, but no use hiding it from Miwako. This was why he was asking her advice, so bravado would just get in the way. You're worried about Kaede. Seeing her mom again could well be quite a blow. Her condition wasn't Kaide's fault, but the bullying she'd been through had made their mother lose confidence in her parenting skills and started her breakdown that ended up happening. If she saw what her mother was like now, Kaede might feel responsible, and that might crush her. She was finally able to go outside, go to school, and decide her own path of life. Sakata didn't want to see her closing herself off again. He wanted Kaede to see her mother, to be able to visit her, but as much as he wanted her to move forward, the what ifs kept his feet glued to the ground. You're a classic big brother. He almost spit his tea. You're really playing the role to the hilt, meaning Miwako didn't answer. Instead, she simply put her thoughts on the subject in plain words. If you're there for her, I'm sure Kaede will be okay. That wasn't a reason he was prepared to accept. Kaide's worked out that you would always have her back, and that'll get her through most things. Still didn't feel right. You don't believe me? He trusted Miwako and believed she meant what she said. She'd been there for Kaede all this time, patiently working with her. It was his own part in this that Sakata had no faith in, and it was his part. And it was his part that Miwako was basing her confidence on. Should I list all the good things about you until you start feeling confident? No thanks. That would just be torture. He might not be on board with her logic, but he decided to trust her overall judgment. That was better than trying to prevent Kaede from seeing her mother. In which case, I think you should allow them to meet as long as your mother is up to it. Have you picked a date? Working on it. I figured I should talk to you first, Miss Tomobe. The idea of consulting Miwako had come up in the conversation with his father, and that had led directly to their meeting today. Mom hasn't actually talked to her advisors about it either, so we're waiting on an answer from them. Ah, well, let's hope it works out. Miwako gave him a warm smile. Her words were heartfelt, and he finally felt like he understood what she was saying. He finally accepted it. It wasn't just Sakata. Kaede had people around her who were there to worry and there to help. Miwako had her back, and so did Mai and Nadaka. Tomi Kano had come over to visit, and that had helped. Having people like that gave Kaede the courage to keep going. She'd been through her share of hardship, but she'd still managed to find things important to her, and that's why she'd be fine. Miwako finished off her tea, put the empty cup down on the saucer, and looked Sakata in the eye. Are you okay? You don't get why I'd be worried. That was more or less accurate. Rifts between family members in adolescence tend to play along. Wait, what? What is? Sorry, I've moved along too quick. Rifts between family members in adolescence tend to play along gender lines. Mothers and daughters are particularly prone to it, so I'm not actually that concerned. But you haven't seen your mother in a long time, Sakata. Well, no. Do you want to see her? Her question didn't exactly come out of nowhere. They talked about his mother before. Answers shouldn't have been this elusive. But when she asked, Sakata found himself weirdly reluctant. Tried to say yes, but the words stuck in his throat. I might be a little scared of it. That's something I've been wondering too. Like, how is we've always like thought the interaction between Kaede and the mother would be kind of awkward, or just be kind of a tough situation because of the situation behind it, because her adolescent syndrome, the bullying and stuff was what kind of caused for her mother to, break down and everything and have to go to the hospital. But and she's saying that she wants to see Kaede, and Kaede is saying that she wants to see her, but we haven't seen Sakata really be like, yeah, let's go see my mom, or like, let's do this, or whatever, be like excited for it, or something like that, or say like, I want to go see her. So yeah, I was wondering like, what are his thoughts on it? Gonna be really excited to go see her. Like, what's his reaction gonna be? All right, so my bad, Kartik. Yeah, damn, but I really wanted to see what happens with Yukino and Hikigaya. I mean, the way the story progresses was so wholesome. Yeah, I know. Same. Like, I love the how it ended up playing out at the end of it. They're still gonna be there. Like Hikigaya and Yukino are gonna be there, and I think they show some scenes and stuff with them, kind of being a couple and everything, which I'm looking forward to seeing. Because I always end up, I don't like it when they end up cutting off the story, like right when they end up getting together, or whatever, in stories like that in rom-coms. But yeah, I'm excited that the fact that they're gonna at least show them in some way, after they get together and be a couple and stuff. But yeah, we'll see how that ends up playing out, though. All right. All right, let's see where I left off. Yeah, do you want to see her? Her question didn't exactly come out of nowhere. They talked about this about his mother before. The answer shouldn't have been this elusive, but when she asked, Sakata found himself weirdly reluctant. He tried to say yes, but the word stuck in his throat. I might be a little scared of it. When he dug down to the source of his reluctance, those words came out. Once he put his mind to it, his fears were hardly trivial. He could see them clearly now. He might have only just realized it, but this had been gnawing away at him for some time, and he wasn't sure when. It had been 2 long years. If he saw his mother again, how would he begin? Could he just be all, "Hey, long time no see," or would that be wildly inappropriate? He tried to imagine how he'd feel, how he'd act, what he'd do, and he didn't know how it would turn out, what was right, or what he even wanted. He couldn't form any clear picture of it. I just don't know what to say. Kaide always talked to her more than I did. That's true for Dad as well. Tell me about your mother. I mean, she's like anyone else. I guess she's pretty chill. She was a housewife and did a good job with the housework. Cooking 3 meals a day, cleaning all the rooms, doing everyone's laundry. She had a lot on her plate, but Sakata never really noticed any failings on her part. Every now and then there'd be a pile of dirty laundry or takeout for dinner or instant ramen for lunch, but he'd never once heard her complain about having too much work. But doing all that work takes a toll, and there must have been days when she didn't feel up to it. When they moved out, when they'd moved out, he'd had to do it all himself, and he understood that now. But he couldn't think of anything else to say. Even though they'd lived together for 15 years before he'd moved to Fujisawa, there should have been more. We so often don't know our parents. I guess so. Especially boys. You don't know about your parents' childhoods, when they first fell in love, what friends they have or had, or even how your parents met. Takata could only nod. He didn't know any of that. He felt pretty sure he talked to his father more since they started living apart. In junior high, all their interactions had been through his mother. Your father said, or I told your father, and his conversations with his mother had mostly been answering whatever questions she asked. He'd never really been inclined to share what he'd done that day, but Kaide had. Kaide had always been close to their mother and closer to their dad than Sakata had been. The three of them were a close-knit family. It was weird. He was trying to remember any conversations he'd had with his mother, but nothing really came to mind. They must have all been about such ordinary things that nothing had really stuck. Good morning, dinner's ready. Thanks for cooking. I'll be back late today. I'm off to school. I'm home. Bat's ready. Bat's free. Good night. Just normal things. They'd probably had more interactions than that, but all just part of the daily routine and nothing that would catch in the nets of his mind. Excuse me. And that's why he had no clue what to do if he saw her again. He'd never really thought about how to talk to her. Their conversations had always been about regular everyday stuff, and since that wasn't an option, he was kind of freaking out a bit. He'd never spoken to her under less than ordinary circumstances. But realizing that felt like a weight had lifted off his chest. I'm glad I talked to you about this, he said. Oh? Miwako blinked at him. It helped me figure out what's going through my mind. Well, if there's anything bothering you, feel free to ask. I'll do that. Miwako sent him off with one last encouragement. I hope Kaede gets to see her mother. Oh yeah, man. I can't wait to see the movie too. It's gonna be freaking awesome. The fact that it's gonna be coming out in the summer, we're already in March. So summertime is only, a few months away, and then hopefully, once that movie comes out, we get a movie release, overseas and stuff, which most likely will end up happening. But I'm just wondering when exactly it's gonna happen, and when that does happen, it's gonna be a fucking stupendous, damn glorious day. The fact that we get to see more Bunny Girl Senpai in theaters, or just anime in general, it's gonna be freaking great. And then we'll get to see eventually the Knapsack Kid movie whenever they put out some more information on that. All right. Cool. That evening, his dad called again. After talking to their mother's doctor, they recommended waiting until Kaede had graduated from junior high. Naturally, this suggestion was made with an eye on Kaede's well-being. Her graduation was set for next week, March 9th. Sakata had no objections and agreed readily enough. Are you coming to her graduation? March 9th was a Monday, a regular old weekday. Kaede was hovering near the phone, very curious. I'll be there. Okay, good. He gave Kaede the nod, and she managed an awkward smile. Her reaction said she was just glad he was coming, but also embarrassed by it. It looked like relief was winning out. She picked Nasuno up and gave her a hug. If their father hadn't gone, Sakata had planned on attending, but no such luck. A perfect excuse to ditch school went right out the window. I'll talk to your mother and settle on a date to visit. That's likely involved keeping a close eye on her condition. Got it? Said. Sakata hung up, leaving his own opinions unsaid. For the next few days, they tried to act like everything was normal, but the meeting with their mother was on their minds. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they both got up and went to school. Sakata was doing his best to apply himself in classes and hitting his flashcards on breaks and the commute. Also worked a few shifts and went to school again the next day. A busy schedule. Yet at the slightest opportunity, Sakata's head would fill with the thoughts of his mother. Anytime he passed a mom of her generation, anytime he saw a mom her height at the grocery store, especially if he saw a mom out with her daughter who was Kaide's age, seeing these families laughing together made him hope Kaide and their mother could act like that again someday. He'd felt like that for a long time, but reality was far from that ideal, and so much had happened with the other Kaide, so he'd forced it out of his mind. At one point, he'd completely given up on it, but giving up didn't mean those feelings had gone away. And the world was filled with triggers to remind him. There was so many ordinary families. He spent his whole Saturday at work. In the evening, Mai called from he spent his whole Saturday at work. In the evening, Mai called from a shoot somewhere in Yamanashi. How'd the college thing go, Mai? The exam results were posted today, March 7th. I'm in. She'd sounded excited from the get-go, so he'd figured as much. There was never really any doubt she'd pass. Mai Sakurajima didn't fail. Congrats, Mai. Thanks. Oh no, wait. Oh no, you've got to do your part. Wait, what? Yeah. Oh, no, you've got to do your part, Sakata. I know you are. So if I don't get in next year, you won't be mad? I'd wait one more year if I had to. I don't want to be stuck studying that long. Best I passed the first time. She'd manipulated him into promising if this was the north wind and the sun, he'd have gone with the sun strategy. Pleased with her victory, Mai said goodnight and hung up. The next day was Sunday, March 8th, yet Sakata took Kaede out of the house bright and early. They rode a train from Fujisawa Station for a solid hour and wound up in the heart of Shinjuku. They were here for a remote learning school's presentation. It lasted a good hour and a half, but Kaede listened with rapt attention, taking further furious notes. She was doing her best to pick the right school for herself. When that was over, their dad caught up with them and they had some individual consultations. The school didn't claim to offer cutting edge online classes for no reason. As long as they applied by the end of March, she'd be counted as a freshman that April. 3 more weeks to decide. The teacher who met Kaede said, "You've got time to think, no need to rush." Unlike conventional schools, this one had no real cap on admissions and no need to demand paperwork early. Their father and Sakata both thought Kaede would want to go home and sleep on it, but she proved them wrong. As the meeting ended and they rose to leave, Kaede said, "I want to go here." She made her feelings known right away. It didn't seem like she was rushing into it or at all uncertain. She looked pleased with herself, like she'd said something what she'd been thinking the entire time. The teacher got a laptop ready, and they filled out the online application. School itself would take a few days to reach a decision, but this effectively settled Kaide's high school plans. Glad to have that out of the way, the next day she set off for graduation in high spirits. As promised, their father was there, and Mai sneaked in too. Sakata didn't find out until he got home. Mai had walked home from graduation with Kaede. And wait, what? Mai had walked home from graduation with Kaede and was still with her. She'd come back from Yamanashi first thing that morning. She had her hair tied up and draped over one shoulder. She was wearing fake glasses and a drab formal jacket. He'd almost never seen her in a pencil skirt, so he steered that into his eyeballs and silently stomped his foot. Nadaka joined them that evening once her idol lessons were done, and they had their second low-key graduation party. Kaede had successfully attended graduation, and her next school was lined up, so she was looking a lot more confident. She was talking with Mai and Nadaka at least 20% more chatty than usual. Damn. So Kaide's graduated. She's freaking on her way. She's on her way to freaking high school now. That's freaking dope. Let's go. Kaide's moving on up. She's already in high school. Now we just need, Mai graduated from high school not that long ago. In the end of volume 8, Kaede just graduated from junior high and is going into high school pretty soon. So that's two fucking hype things, and now we just need Sakata. He's the only one that needs to, Sakata, Futaba, and Kunimi are the next ones up that need to, graduate next. So that's gonna be fucking hype. I'm excited. But let's go, Kaede. She's going to high school, yeah. Alright. GG, good chapter. With Kaede free of junior high, they were now in wait for dad to call mode, but they couldn't exactly stand by the phone 24/7, so Sakata was busy going to school and sitting the final exams of his second year. Sitting the final exams of his second year. Even when he was home, he was mostly studying. The next day, he'd be back at school for another test. Rinse and repeat all week long without too much else happening. The only other incident of note arrived when he checked the mailbox after exams. Found a letter from Shoko in Okinawa. It included a photo of her looking healthy, beautiful, Okinawan ocean behind her. She was wearing a short-sleeved white sundress and a straw hat. The letter said it had been nearly 80 degrees out. Big difference from Kanto, which was barely starting to show signs of spring. I'll write again. The letter ended with that and made no mention of adolescent syndrome. Sakata figured that meant Shoko knew nothing about the new scar on his side or the little girl who looked just like Mai. Well, if she doesn't know, she'd be better off not knowing. He'd have to write back. For the moment, he put the letter away in a drawer. And then the weekend arrived. Saturday, March 14th. Nadaka had invited them to a concert venue in Yokohama. Sweet Bullet was performing. Mai was back in Yamanashi shooting that TV show. This was doubling as Nadaka's birthday concert, so it was a shame Mai couldn't be there. But her fans were cheering her extra hard that day, and she worked up a real sweat, clearly having a great time. After the concert, since it was also White Day, there was a meet and greet where the group members passed out cookies. You can get a single cookie from whichever member was your favorite. Sakata got in line for Sweet Bullet's leader Uzuki Hirokawa. He got a cookie and a handshake. Apparently, she always went all out no matter what she was doing, which explained why his hand was still throbbing. Naturally, Nadaka was all, "Why'd you get in Suki's line?" That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, damn. I was like, all right. He just like completely like dissed Nadaka like that and was like, all right, I'm going to the leader. I'm going to Uzuki's. Makes sense though, I guess, because it seems like he's. I mean, I know he likes Nadaka, but at the same time too, I think he's more interested in her than in Nadaka, and of course he likes to give Nadaka a hard time. Uh, wanted to thank her for her help with Kaide's high school, a pretty legitimate reason. That's it. I also like idols who don't wear panties, equally legitimate. Oh, okay, sweet. Let's go. This is very entertaining. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Let's go. This is our first page, our first picture of the light novel here. Damn. Yeah, this is the first one. Is there another one after this? Oh shit. I thought there was another one after this, but this is the first picture that I've come across of this light novel so far, which is dope, which is really cool. This is of course Shoko Makinohara, the picture of her of the letter that she gave Sakata or sent to them. Really cool. She's in Okinawa right now. sad that she, like I said, it's sad that she had to leave. But she's off doing her own thing and stuff, having fun and living her life with her family and everything, somewhere else right now. She wears the she wears them. Kaede had come with him, and she got in Nadaka's line. As they were getting ready to leave, Uzuki made time for them to thank her again, which involved another full power handshake. It was past 9 by the time they left. Kaede was almost never out of the dark, so walking the streets at night must have been a thrill for her. You were amazing, Nadaka. Well, yeah, Uzuki was really cool too. Yep, I want to go to more. I want to go to more concerts. He clearly was a big fan. It was after 10 before they made it home. We're back, he said, and Nasuno poked her face out from the living room, meowing at them. He gave her a late dinner. Kaede called. Wait, he gave her a late dinner, and Kaede called Sakuta. There's a message on the machine. He looked up. The red light was flashing. Maybe Mai had called while on location, but he saw an anxious look in Kaide's eyes. He didn't have to ask why. The same thought had crossed his mind. There was only one person likely to call, so their dad. He was feeling nervous already. He could sense a wave of tension rising up inside him. Before it got too much, he moved the phone and pressed the button. One message, 8:21 p.m. Neither of them took their eyes off the phone. Neither of them could. About visiting your mother, their father's voice. She's in good shape right now. I know it's sudden, but would tomorrow afternoon work? Oh shit. So really, really soon. He got right to the point. No wasted words. I'll call back later. The message ended and the room got real quiet. Well, Kaide? Rather than answer, she just nodded. No hesitation. Okay. Guess we'll see her tomorrow. He picked up the phone and called her dad back. Dad, it's me. Oh, nice. Mystery kid who looks like Mai, a little girl who spoke to Sakata on the beach at Shichirigahama, looks exactly like Mai as a child star. Little character profile card, nice, not bad. Cool. All right, we're in chapter 2. That whole thing was just one chapter. Tarnation. We're like 32% of the way through this, so I guess. Oh yeah, I guess that kind of shapes out right. There's usually only a few chapters in it. I'm just used to other books where the chapters are a little bit shorter than what we kind of went through. All right, but we're in the next one. Yeah, Shoko's become like a side character. Yeah, she kind of has. Yeah, they just were like, all right, your role in the story for the most part is kind of done with after the Dreaming Girl movie. Let's ship you off somewhere else. Unfortunately, but it's all right though. The next day was Sunday, March 15th, and the dawn brought cloudy skies and scattered drizzle. Nakata and Kaide got up at 8 and worked their way through a breakfast of toast, eggs, yogurt, and orange juice. When they were done, they did the dishes and turned on the TV to hide how quiet the room was. A review of the week's big news, sports highlights, and the latest in entertainment washed over them, leaving very little impressions. Just before 11, Sakata said, "Time we got ready." It was almost time to visit their mother. Oh shit, I forgot that that's the actual day they're gonna go see her. Right, Kaede said, nodding it a bit too much. She was tense. Her movements were stiff as she went to her room. Once she was out of sight, Sakata headed to his own room. He stripped out of his indoor clothes and put on a t-shirt and jeans, the hoodie over the top. The weather lady had said that they were in for some warm spring weather, so he probably wouldn't need a jacket. Back in the living room, Sakata realized Kaede was still holed up. He could hear noises that suggested she was still changing. Good 5 minutes later, she finally emerged. She had on a dress with straps over the shoulders and a basic cardigan over that. A look with one toe in, grown up. Nothing flashy, but clearly dressed to impress. It's not weird, is it? She asked the moment their eyes met. She still looked very tense. Only your face, he said. I'm asking about the clothes. Even her scowl was tense. Mai gave you those. There's then no way they're weird. Sometimes things look good on her and not on me. We'd better head out. Ignoring her protestations, he headed for the door. Ah, wait up. As she came running after him, he paused long enough for her to get her shoes on, then reached for the door handle. He just had to open it like he always did, but it sure felt different today. Today, this would lead them to their mother for the first time in 2 years. He opened the door. This is crazy. The fact that, they're actually going to see their mom right now is kind of fucking nuts. I didn't know when this was actually gonna like happen. I was wondering when it would happen. I you knew it was gonna happen eventually in the story, but I didn't know when, and I didn't think how, I guess, quick it would end up happening. At least it feels quick to me, just because just you're just reading the light novels or whatever. Like the story kind of moves through kind of quick when you're in the midst of it. But man, it's nuts that we're finally gonna see what this kind of interaction is happening, or like what's gonna happen with this interaction. Damn. All right, drops pattering down around them. Sakata matched Kaide's pace on the hill from their apartment. They were walking a bit farther apart than normal so their umbrellas wouldn't bump. They took it one step at a time to the station. From below, the sound of rain drumming their umbrellas was awfully loud. It wasn't even raining that hard, but there were no other sounds around, so the patter really stood out. He thought he heard Kaide say something. Hmm? He asked. I said, "It sure is raining." She tilted her umbrella to one side, peering up at the sky. She seemed disappointed. Today was a big day. To most people, it might just be another Sunday, but for them, the two of them, it was probably the biggest day in years. Heidi had been hoping for sunshine. Dad said it's a good thing. No allergies. Oh, maybe it's true. Kaide forced herself to agree, then glanced up at him, smiling awkwardly. The stress she'd shown at home was still there. Her smile wasn't usually this strained, as if trying to settle her nerves, she said. Sakata, hmm? We're passing through Yokohama Station on the way, right? Yep. Station that seemed to be permanently under construction, probably less, never finished, and more constantly evolving. He hoped he'd see it completed at least once in his lifetime. What about it? I want to bring Mom some pudding, the kind from the basement there, in the beaker. Oh, the one with the hard-boiled guy on the side? When they were little, every time they went shopping at Yokohama Station, they'd always brought that home with them. A chain that had started in Hayama or Zushi, but they had a branch inside inside a Yokohama department store. Mom really liked those. Oh, I thought you were the one who liked them. I do, but Mom does too. Well, if you say so. Miwako had just made him realize how little he knew about his parents, and now it was dawning on him how little he knew about what his mother even liked. He had a vague idea she liked pumpkin, but he'd never actually asked. It had never even occurred to him to do so, and that had been a problem, or that had never been a problem before. So I want to share with them. I want to share them with her again. God, I can't freaking read. I want to share them with her again. Got it. She'd likely be delighted. At the very least, she'd known why Kaide brought them. Also, Sakata, some siumai? Uh, yeah, siumai. These Chinese dumplings had been a staple on their dining table after Yokohama visits. They were good even cold. Oh, I do want to have those again, but no, that's not it. Then what? Shoko is an important Albuta fan. Yeah, what's going on? Hope you're doing well. Albuta fan. Shoko is an important character, but she's not the main character. Sakata and mine are the central characters of the story. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's why I was like, it sucks that she's gone, just because I liked her as like a side character and stuff. But with her main part in the story was pretty much tied to Sakata's adolescent syndrome with the scar and stuff. So now that that's been resolved and everything, she like her time in the story is like kind of gone. So I feel like that's why they pushed her away and made her move away. All right. Well, where was I at? Yeah, she'd brought it up, but Kaide just stared at the ground for a minute. Wait, yeah. Oh, I do want to have those again, but no, that's not it. What? She'd brought it up, but Kaide just stared at the ground for a minute, not saying the next thing, just watching one foot move after the other. He glanced at her profile, and she looked extra anxious, though he knew right away why. Mom's the one who suggested this. It'll be okay, he said, watching the road ahead for the both of them. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw her flinch. He kept his eyes face front. How'd you know, Sakata? It was written all over your face. What did it say? It's my fault Mom's had such a hard time. What if she holds it against me? She was likely worrying that their reunion would mean spiteful or hostile. It wasn't Kaide's fault the bullies had come after her, but those events had been the straw that broke their mother, and that fact was undeniable. Kaide's guilt was seated pretty deep. He couldn't just tell her not to feel that way. Misfortune had brought them to this point, but once you start blaming your own weaknesses, it's hard to shake that notion. Kaide certainly couldn't do it alone.
She'd always be left wondering if they'd still be living together if she'd been stronger, if she'd managed to beat the bullies. Mom's really not mad at me, right? She might be mad if she heard you saying that. I'm sure would be, or I sure would be. Hmm. That brought Kaide's head up at last, but her anxiety remained. Even if he'd eased her fears a bit, she was still really stressed out about this visit. He didn't blame her. That's just how big the rift was in their family. A 2-year gulf. You couldn't just hop over it and suddenly be happy. So Kaide's nerves stayed raw all the way to Fujisawa Station and didn't ease up on the train ride to Yokohama. When they got off at Yokohama Station, they swung by the department store and bought pudding and siumai because why not? And she was smiling, but it was very strained. The closer they got to their station, the less she was talking. After boarding the Kihin Tohoku line, she stopped speaking almost entirely. We'll be switching trains at the next stop. She was silently nodding. They got off at the Kanagawa station and switched to the Yokohama line, which took them all the way to the Hachioji, the Yokohama line. That was pretty a weird name for a line that didn't actually stop at a Yokohama station. Uh, there were actually a number of through service trains running on the line that did stop there. If you didn't know that, it was kind of confusing. Heidi sat down in the empty carriage, holding the box of pudding carefully. Her eyes were on the windows, but she likely wasn't seeing any of it. Her head was probably filled with thoughts of their mother. Takata decided not to say anything. He thought she'd be okay, even if she didn't. She might be nervous, but she was past the point where that could stop her. She might not be going fast, but she was moving toward their mother at her own pace, her own free will. It was a 10-minute ride on the silver train with a yellow-green line on the side. Outside, they could see a huge building coming up, round and tall, clearly not an office or an apartment tower. This was the International Stadium Yokohama, where the Japan national soccer team played and where the World Cup final had been held. Nowadays, it was called Nissan Stadium. The lack of any other large buildings around really made it loom. When the train pulled into Kozukwe Station, the closest stop to the stadium, Sakata said, "Here," and they got off. Outside the gates, they headed to the south exit, away from the stadium. They reached the main thoroughfare and turned right, and followed the road for a while. The rain was coming down harder now. Drops splattering on the pavement made their shoes wet. Heidi didn't grumble at all and just huddled under her umbrella, doing her best to keep the pudding dry, like a mother bird trying to keep her eggs warm in a chilly breeze. He knew she was really looking forward to eating the pudding with their mom again, and wasn't about to let a little rain ruin that. They followed the road for a while, and then he signaled a right turn into an alley. Almost there. True to his word, Sakata led them about 5 yards further, the muddy ground squished beneath their feet. Here? Kaide stopped short, looking up at the building. It was an old 3-story apartment building. The exterior had been given a fresh coat of paint, but the outdoor stairs and the general vibe made it clear it had been built a long time ago. This was Sakata's second time here. He'd visited once shortly after they'd started living apart, figuring he should at least know where his dad lived. His father had said the building was worker housing, built 40 years ago. With no elevator, they had to climb the stairs to the third floor. Outside Unit 301 was a tiny card reading Asasagawa. "Ready?" he asked, finger hovering over the doorbell. "No, no, not yet," she said. Momentary panic was washing over her. "Okay," he said, ring the doorbell anyway. Nakata, Kaide wailed, looking betrayed. "The longer we draw it out, the harder it'll be. If waiting made people relax, they'd never be stressed in the first place." "I guess," she said, clearly not entirely convinced. "But you're the one who asked." She would have yelled at him if he hadn't too. That's why he paid lip service to it. Clearly she hadn't realized how considerate her brother was. How sad. As he lamented in this, he heard the latch turn and the door swung inward. "You get wet?" their dad asked, stepping out. It was his day off, but he was in a dress shirt and slacks. If he put a tie on, he'd be ready for work. "Even my socks are soaked," Sakata said. Their dad held the door open for them, and Sakata waved Kaide in ahead. Stepped inside, and Sakata followed her. Door closed. Took off their shoes and socks, and their dad put out slippers for them. They wore them barefoot. "Thanks for having us," Kaide whispered, so quietly no one could hear. Their dad lived here. So in a sense, this was their house too, but it didn't smell like home. And that made it feel like they didn't belong, like they were visiting a stranger's house. Yeah, I was gonna say it like kind of took a while for them to go from point A, like their place that they live right now, to where they're currently at. It was a little bit of a trip, it felt like. But yeah, they go into detail a lot like that, at least in some of their travelings. Their father seemed a little unsure of himself too, but he quickly got his wits together and led them farther in. Today was about other things. Dear Kaide and Sakata are here, he called. There were curtains hanging between the entrance and the main room, blocking the view. Damn, so it's about to happen. My bad, I had to stop to get some water. My freaking throat's kind of getting a little scratchy. He could feel Kaide tensing up again. Hoping to loosen her back up, he moved up behind her and placed his hands on her shoulders. Sakata felt them twitch, and she looked back at him. Come on, he said. Once she answered, he gave her a little push. It was a two-bedroom apartment. A short hall led away from the entrance, with the dining room just past the curtains. And Kaede stepped in under her own power. On the other side of the curtains was a dining table, chairs, and a woman seated at it. She looked a bit worn out, thinner than Sakata remembered her. For a moment she seemed smaller, but the way her hair flowed over her shoulders was the same. It was unmistakably their mother. Mom, Kaede said. Their mother's gaze rose from the table. It flickered right and left, then landed on Kaede. Mom, she said, again, louder this time. Kaede, her voice was a rasp. If he hadn't been listening for it, he might have missed it. But Sakata heard it. Their dad heard it, and so did Kaede. It's me, Mom. Kaede took a step closer, then another. She put the box of pudding down on the table and then went around it to their mother, reaching out and taking her hands. Mom, she said, tears in her voice, like forgotten all her words. All other words, she kept saying it like she was just trying to make up for 2 years of not ever saying the word. Their mother nodded every time. Mom, mom, mom. Kaede, that's all you've said. I know, you're so tall now. Yeah, their mother grabbed a towel and dried the tears from her daughter's face. Cut your hair, she said, putting her hands on Kaide's shoulders and looking over her. Is it weird? Kaide messed with her locks. No, it's much more grown up. Kaide looked relieved, embarrassed, glad. I had it done at a place Mai recommended. Mai is Sakata's girlfriend. He's got one? Shocking, right? Anyway, once the words started, Kaede couldn't be stopped. Words and feelings came tumbling out of her. That's one thing too that I was wondering. Like as soon as she said like, "Oh, Mai did it," I was like, she does. I don't think she even knows who Mai Sakurajima even is. Um, maybe the dad told her, but it doesn't seem like it. All right. 2 years. Once the words started, Kaede couldn't be stopped. Words and feelings came tumbling out of her. 2 years they lived apart. 4 more months since Kaede had overcome her dissociative disorder. That was a long time and had a lot happen to her. She made it back to school, struggled with exams, chose her own future, a whole stockpile of things I did today that she always used to tell her mom. She could talk and never run out, never be at a loss for words. They'd been told it was the best to keep this first visit to an hour or two, but when Sakata first thought to check the clock, it was already way past that. It had already been 3 whole hours. Kaede had been talking the whole time, but now her stomach was growling. It's a bit early, but let's have dinner, their mother said. And for the first time in ages, the four of them sat down together. Their father helped Sakata cook, and they warmed up the siumai he'd brought too, even during dinner. Kaede never stopped talking. I want to eat your croquettes again, Mom, and help you make them. Or I'll help make them. And that sounds good. Let's do that. They just kept, yeah, they just kept heating up. It felt like the time they had been frozen between them was thawing again. For dessert, they had the pudding Kaede had carried here so carefully. That is good. Really. Both their mother and Kaede, enjoying the reminder of the old times, suddenly teared up without warning. They were being a family again. Their mother looked so much healthier to Sakata than she had when they arrived. There was life in her eyes again. Not long ago, he hadn't dared hope a day like this would come. Just be a normal family again had seemed so far away. But Kaede was trying to change that, trying to get back what they'd lost, and that made Sakata so happy. so happy. Before they knew it, it was past 8. Sakata and his father did the dishes, and when they finished, Kaide was still chattering away, telling her mother about all where she chose to go to high school. Nobody seemed inclined to wrap things up. Their father must have figured that was his job. Just before 9, he said, "It's getting awfully late." Perhaps their mother's answer was inevitable. "Why don't you stay the night?" He was smiling at Kaide. "Can I?" Kaide asked. "Of course, Sakata." Or Sakata? Kaide seemed unsure if it was her choice to make, and she turned to Sakata and their father. Sakata looked at their dad, making sure from what he'd seen of their mother, Kaide spending the night didn't seem like a big deal. There was a chance it could even be a good thing. Junior high graduation was over. Classes tomorrow. Kaide was on spring vacation. Nobody would yell at her for spending the night with her family. Their dad thought for a moment and said, "Sure, let's do that." They wanted to respect their mother's wishes. "Sakata?" Kaede asked. "I'm going to head back. I gotta feed Nasano." And he did have school. They'd likely only get the grades for last week's exams back, but even so, they couldn't exactly leave their cat to fend for herself. "You could bring Nasano here. How's she doing?" "Great. You can bring her next time," their father said. "This place allows pets. Worker housing often didn't. If I explain in advance, they'll probably allow it for one night." That was a roundabout way of saying no. "Then I'd better go," Sakata said, standing up. "Take care. You look after Mom. Got it?" "Got it." He moved to the door and put his shoes on. "I'll come again, Mom," he called before stepping outside. He managed to remember his umbrella. His father put sandals on and followed him down. It stopped raining. There were still clouds above, but nothing was falling from them. The air felt fresh, like all the grime in it had been washed away. "Thanks, Sakata." Hmm. I'm like, it's probably gonna come up, but I'm like really like weirded out, or I mean, I feel like it's an issue the fact that he didn't say anything to his mom really. Like most of the talking was done by Kaide, and there wasn't like anything going on with him and his mom, like a big interaction between them, I guess. Um, yeah, I'm wondering if he's gonna kind of talk about that right now or something. He wasn't sure what he was being thanked for, but figured having it spelled out would just be embarrassing. But even so, he kinda got it. All four of them had been together. It might have been just a few hours, but it was time they thought would never come again. That may not have seemed like much to people, but who didn't know them. But for Sakata's family, it was downright miraculous. He was pretty sure that was what prompted his father's gratitude. Simple words could mean so much. Tell that to Kaide. "I will. She'll be thrilled." "Yeah, I'd better go." He started walking. "Sakata," his dad called. "Hmm?" "I've been meaning to give you this," he said, holding out a dull silver key. "For?" Sakata glanced up at the apartment above. "Yeah, you might need it." "Okay, thanks." He took the key, still warm from his father's touch, then he waved. This time he really was leaving. "Take care. Look after Mom and Kaide." They kept it simple, and Sakata headed for the station. He knew his father watched him till he was out of sight, but he didn't turn back until he was safe around the corner. He didn't know what state he'd face. Uh, he didn't know what state his face would have been, his face have been in, and his father likely wouldn't have known how to respond either. But Sakata moved forward, feeling a bit more positive than usual. That elation stayed with him the whole way home on the way to the station. During the wait for the train, while changing to the other line, as he watched the scenery pass outside, his body was so filled with joy he felt heat throbbing inside, filling him with energy, filling his sails. But it was very different from the joy that makes you want to impulsively break into a run or shout out loud. It was something so foreign to him that his mind and body were slowly going out of control. How sad was that? Something good had happened, and he was so startled he couldn't even savor the afterglow properly. In that sense, he was glad Kaede had wound up spending the night. He wasn't sure if he should really talk to her in this condition. No matter what they talked about, he was sure his head wouldn't be in it. He quietly laughed at himself for this. If he let that show, the other passengers would think he was a weirdo. So he acted like nothing was wrong or nothing was going on and simply stood by the door, staring out the window all the way to Fujisawa. When he got off the train, he checked the clock on the platform. It was almost 10. He avoided the line for the escalator and took the stairs instead. Heidi was probably still talking to their mother, or maybe they were getting the bath ready. They might well bathe together like they used to. His mind on these things, he took one step at a time. In a single day, the 2 year gap had been filled in. Heidi had connected with their mother so easily, and it was like they had never been apart for this in the first place, because they were family. Maybe we'll end up living together again. That day could come far faster than he thought. The warm smiles he'd seen today made it seem like that future was close at hand. Heide smiling, half crying, their mother wiping the tears welling up in her eyes as she listened, with their hands clasped together. The two of them were constantly smiling, crying, then smiling again, over and over. Their father, so moved by the sight, he nearly teared up himself and grinned to hide it, then excused himself to the bathroom when that stopped working. So much warmth. Yeah, at least, yeah, man. The dialogue was good. Sorry for off topic, but is Tempe area in Phoenix nice as a locality? My brother is coming for his masters at ASU in a few. You live in Phoenix. Uh, yeah, yeah. I live in Arizona. Yeah, near Tempe. Um, oh damn. So he's coming over here to Arizona. Nice, not bad. Yeah, Tempe's pretty nice. Yeah, Tempe. It can be a little. It's like it's one of the more major cities, I guess, in Arizona. Um, big big on college. I just went like to Tempe not that long ago, maybe like sometime last week, I think on like Tuesday or something like that. And I was going through certain parts of it kind of closer to ASU area, and it's really nice. Yeah, it's really cool. I went to a lake that they have over there. It's really nice. They have a bunch of cool, like little paddle boats and stuff people you can take. There's a bunch of, I think, like college students I saw that they're rowboating. Like there's a bunch of them like that, were carrying big old rowboats and they're like rowing through the lake and stuff all the way around and stuff. People that might do it competitively or something like that, or doing it for practice. It was kind of cool seeing that because I never did that when I was in college. But yeah, there was a bunch of like kids doing that. Yeah, it was nice. There was some ducks and stuff around. But yeah, it's ASU they sometimes say is like kind of like a party school, but yeah, but it's still nice. Like the area is cool. There's a lot to do over there in Tempe. It's pretty fun when you're out there. Um, but yeah, I think you'll have a good time. That's really cool that he's coming over here, man. Dope. All right, where did I leave off? I completely forgot. My bad. Where was that drink? I think I was around here somewhere. Where the heck was I? Out loud. Sad was that something good? In that sense, he was glad Kaide. Yeah, no problem, man. When is he? Said in a few months. So is he gonna start for his like the what is it, the fall semester? I assume that's when he's gonna start. It's really crazy though. That's cool that he's coming over here. Yeah, there's always my mom used to live in the Tempe area, like around there, kind of closer to the ASU, but then she ended up moving not that long ago. But I would go over there, here and there, um, and be in that area a lot. But yeah, like I said, I go there once in a while. I just went there not that long ago, but it's really nice though. And I have some friends that used to go there. Yeah, there's a lot of cool things. I know they have a what is it? They have a my bad. They have a Tempe location, and they have a downtown location too, I believe as well. Like a Tempe location, downtown Phoenix location. But I'm assuming he's going to the Tempe location because that sounds like what I'm pretty sure that's what you said. Yeah, it's really cool though. And there's definitely, like any other place, there's crime that happens and stuff. It's not like there's like a place that's just perfect or whatever. You still hear of like crime that happens in the areas and everything. But for the most part, like it's a pretty cool location. I like Tempe. I would like to live there I would like to live in Tempe myself. But Tempe's kind of expensive, so I don't. But yeah. Alright, so something good happened, and he was so startled he couldn't even savor the afterglow properly. In that sense, he was glad Kaede had wound up spending the night. He wasn't sure if he should really talk to her in this condition. No matter what they talked about, he was sure his head wouldn't be in it. Okay, I think I passed that part all the way to Fuji. When he got off the train, he checked the clock on the platform. It was almost 10. He avoided the line for the escalator and took the stairs instead. Kaede was probably still talking to their mother, or maybe they were getting the bath ready. Oh, okay, wait, I was past that. I'm over here. Uh, Okay, that day could come faster than he thought. The warm smiles he'd seen today made it feel like that future was close at hand. Kaide was smiling, half crying. Her mother was wiping away their tears, welling up in her eyes as she listened, with their hands clasped together. The two of them were constantly smiling, crying, and smiling again, over and over. Their father, so moved by the sight, he nearly teared up himself and grinned to hide it, then excused himself to the bathroom when that stopped working so much warmth. What Sakata had seen, what he'd felt, those were family bonds outside the gates on the walk back home. Even when he swung by a convenience store, the rush stayed with him. Back in his apartment, he said, "I'm back," and took off his shoes, feeling a little relieved when they'd left that morning. Things had been so tense, but that vibe was gone now. Nasuno heard him, entered and peeked out of the living room, meowing. "I'm back, Nasuno. You hungry?" Meow. He washed his hands, gargled, and moved into the living room. Nasuno was rubbing against his feet, so he poured some kibble into her bowl. She started working her way through it, and he watched her eat for a bit. But before long, he was remembering the day he'd had, and was fidgeting again. Clearly, getting home wasn't enough to settle him down. As if that wasn't enough proof, Mai called after her bath, and somehow they ended up talking for a full half hour. These calls never went more than 10 minutes tops. He told Mai ahead of time that they were visiting his mother today, so he gave her the rundown on how it went. He mentioned how nervous Kaede had been on the way. She'd been stressed out about the reunion since the night before, or possibly ever since it had been first mentioned. So Sakata had been certain there'd be a long, awkward silence once they'd met. He'd been wrong. Kaede hadn't needed Sakata or their father to help. She dived right in, connecting with her mother again and doing everything possible to make up for the 2 years they'd missed. And as he told Mai about it, the time flew by. I clung to every word. Kaede did good, she said. Yeah, I'm glad. This mattered to her too. He could feel that through the phone. It was very Mai to share in this joy of his. She was just as thrilled that Kaede and her mother made it work, and Sakata was overjoyed that she was thinking of them. Sorry, Mai, I kind of rambled for a bit. Thanks, though. Don't worry about it. I wanted to know besides. I already prepped for the shoot tomorrow. She'd had all her lines memorized. You'll be back Thursday? That's the plan. I'll be waiting with eyes peeled. He threw in a hint of their usual banter to wrap things up. Good night, Sakata. Good night. And the call came to a close. All right, next part. Perhaps inevitably, he had trouble falling asleep the night before. Something deep down inside was quietly roiling, and Sakata's mind had not drifted into slumber until well after 3. Yet he'd woken up easily. His mind sprang to life as his alarm started ringing, and he sat right up. He reached out and shut off the racket, got out of bed, and stretched. Yawn. um, every muscle in him strained, then relaxed. Another step toward being fully conscious. August. Yeah, it's starting. I heard the dorms are way too expensive, so I gotta figure out the resident. I gotta figure out the residence situation. He's actually a American citizen, so he got in pretty easily. PRE stuff, nice, not bad, good stuff. But yeah, the dorms I'm assuming yeah are super expensive. Yeah, and just like areas around there are kind of expensive too. But I don't know. Like some people I know like to like roommate. Think they yeah they like have college friends or whatever or something like that, or like people in general that are going there. They get roommates and stuff and try to, I guess, split up the cost that way. At least sometimes you see that happen. But yeah, it'll be. I know it can be a little expensive, but I'm hoping everything goes well with that. All right, he headed to the living room, but only Nasuno was there. It was weirdly quiet. He could feel the silence on his skin. Kaide's absence alone changed the whole feel of the apartment. This wasn't his first time waking up alone in the house, but it had certainly not been a frequent experience, and it still felt off. Normally, Kaide was here. The other Kaide before her, meow, Nasuno rubbed against his feet, so he gave her breakfast, and he ate something himself. Kaide wasn't here. He didn't bother toasting the bread and simply bit into a whole tomato rather than cut it up. Never even got out of plate. Ate the whole thing standing in the kitchen, leaving nothing to wash up. The bread got stuck in his throat, so he did wash that down with some orange juice. This left him with a few extra minutes, so he turned on the TV and let the morning news fill his ears, slowly getting ready for school. He left just before 8. He walked the usual path to the station. This morning, he was joined by a young woman in a pantsuit and a college-age dude. They both kept checking their phones, tapping the screen, narrowly avoiding the telephone poles. The college student actually did bump into one and apologized to it. Not a particularly unusual sight, an ordinary morning scene. Sagata would likely see similar things on the way to school tomorrow and the day after. He'd seen stuff like this last week too. Typical, ordinary, unremarkable morning sights. A morning routine that wasn't exactly going anywhere, but there would come an end to it. A year from now, Sakata would graduate high school, and before that happened, maybe his family would decide they should live together again. He might move out of his neighborhood sooner than later. The apartment he and Kaide shared was too small for four, but the apartment his father was borrowing from work was not exactly any bigger. Don't get ahead of yourself, he said, but he couldn't stop himself from thinking about it. Seeing Kaede and their mom together had made moving back in together seem so close he could reach out and touch it. Guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. If he was being honest with himself, he found it hard to imagine living anywhere else. He couldn't really picture himself and Kaede living with their parents, even though that had been the routine until the bullies came after her. What happens. Some things just work out that way. Like him and the other Kaede moving here 2 years ago. As time passed, living alone with his sister had become his everyday. So even if that changed, he'd just have to live without regrets, doing nothing out of the ordinary, just being conscious that ordinary days were the definition of happiness. As long as he remembered they'd be okay. With these thoughts on his mind, Sakata walked the 10 minutes to Fujisawa Station. He crossed the bridge from JR Station to the Enoden Fujisawa Station and boarded a train. It was full of students his age. He hung onto the strap, swaying with the train. The Enoden moved slowly and swayed in kind. It was downright comfortable. After Koshigoe Station, the train hit the coast. All this time it had been running between rows of houses, but now the view suddenly opened up, revealing the ocean before him. The morning rays bounced off the surface, making the water gleam. He stared absent at the sea until the train reached Shichigahama Station, where his school lay. At this hour, pretty much only students were disembarking, maybe a teacher or two. The gates stood like scarecrows. He scanned his train pass, and the attendant saw them off with a friendly good morning. The path from the station to the school gates was a river of uniforms mingling with the flow. Sakata crossed the bridge and the tracks, then passed through the open gate. He saw his buddy, Yuma Kunimi, by the entrance, but he was with Saki Kamisato, who hated Sakata's guts, so he headed to class without calling out to them. He reached room 2-1 without speaking to anyone. The room was already half full, abuzz with the pre-homeroom chatter. Friends chattered away, making one another laugh. One eye on that, Sakata took his seat by the window. Skies were clear, and the horizon clearly defined. The bell rang. Student athletes came running in from the morning practice. Their teacher was close behind. Anyone not here, raise your hand, he said. And he quickly looked attendance before wrapping up morning homeroom. Final exams of their second year had ended the week before, and all they were doing this week was getting the answer sheets back. Classes were only held up in the mornings, and neither teachers nor students were particularly motivated. They were just running out the clock to the end of the year. The whole school was in autopilot. Sakata would have loved to be just lazy, but even with finals out of the way, he had to keep studying, get himself ready for college entrance exams next year. He took out his vocab book and started working on his daily memorization quota. He heard someone say, "Guess we'll be changing classes soon," but wasn't sure who. Didn't really care. It was just standard break chatter. It did occur to him that Tomoe would probably be stressing, but that thought came and went. A normal, ordinary day. Class 2-1 was at was as it ever was, and so Sakata remained blissfully unaware of anything wrong. The wrongness revealed itself soon after his first period began. Their English teacher passed back test sheets in order by seat number, but since Sakata's last name was Asasagawa, he should have been first in line. But his name never came. Seat number 2 was called first, and 3 and 4 behind it. He was in no rush, so he figured he'd just ask later. Eventually, all answer sheets were passed out. Some students were pleased with their scores, others were wailing, "I'm doomed." Sakata stood up and approached the podium. "You skipped me," he said. But the oh damn, all right. Don't tell me he's like going through a situation right now. Shit. Um. What did you say? Hold up. Nothing erotic has happened between my and Sakata yet. Nope, not yet. But it might be a situation where they can't see him, or he's just like not existing anymore either. Possibly, I don't know. Maybe his teacher's just fucking ignoring him, but I doubt that. It seems like something maybe a little more. But the teacher ignored him. "Let's start with the first problem," the teacher said, turning to the chalkboard. He began writing. He began writing on it. "I kind of need my test back," Sakata said. Chalk in hand, the teacher turned around. "Lots of people miss this one," he said. Um, his attention was only focused on the answers and what people got wrong. He completely ignored Sakata's presence. No, that wasn't the right verb. The teacher wasn't ignoring him. Ignoring required a conscious choice, and this was a fundamentally different problem. This was increasingly obvious. The English teacher clearly couldn't hear Sakata's voice, or see Sakata at all for that matter. Sakata got right up in his face, waving his hand in front of his eyes. No reaction. He put his hand on the teacher's shoulders, but there wasn't so much as a flinch, not even a reflexive reaction. And this wasn't limited to the teacher. Nobody in class 2-1 was responding to Sakata's actions. "Can anyone see me?" he asked, throwing his arms out wide. No one answered. No one made a face or laughed. Some students were diligently listening to the teacher's explanation. Others were playing with their phones under the desks. Saki Kamisato was always the first to sneer at Sakata's antics and outbursts, but she was simply taking notes on the problems she'd missed. "Really can't see or hear me then?" He said this louder, making sure loud enough to drown out their teacher, pretty much just yelling. But still, nobody noticed. Nobody asked the teacher to repeat himself. What's going on? All he knew was that no one could see him or hear him or knew that he existed. Exactly like the adolescent syndrome I had last year. He had to assume that, he had to assume that's what this was. He wasn't rattled by the nature of the phenomenon itself. He simply had no idea why this would happen to him, and that left him confused and flustered. This was undoubtedly some sort of adolescent syndrome. He was willing to concede that point. Clearly nobody could see him, so he was forced to accept the truth, but he had no clue what could have caused it. All his previous experiences with adolescent syndrome occurred for a reason. That was true for Mai, Tomoe, Ryo, Nadaka, both Kaides, and Shoko. Did something happen to me? Something that might accidentally trigger adolescent syndrome? Something that really preyed on his mind? He thought about it, but literally nothing came to mind. Damn. I know, right? Not again. I honestly think it might be because, like, damn, I don't know. Like, I think it might be something else, of course, but I think it might be because of the fact that Kaede and her mom or whatever are so close already. Like, he already mentioned it before that when they were living together before, Kaede was so close to her dad and her mom, and he was always like not nearly as close to the parents as she was. So it kind of felt like they were a tight knit family, and he was, kind of not a part of that, I guess. And now that they met her mom, or not met, but reunited with her mom, Kaede, like right off the jump, was already, like talking to her mom again, and kind of all already, in the midst. And I'm trying to think of the phrasing for it, but like she was already, it already feels like they're back a family again, at least all three of them. But Sakata is kind of like, again, like an outlier. He really didn't talk to his mom. Uh, I'm thinking that's what it might be like. Maybe he feels like he's like he's not part of the family, or he doesn't exist because they're over there all having a good time as a family, and like the outlier kind of. But we'll see what happens. But damn, I can't believe something like this is happening to him. This is weird. Yeah. All right. Where was I at? Did something happen to me? Something that might actually trigger adolescent syndrome, something that really preyed on his mind. He thought about it, but literally nothing came to mind. Like he said when Rio asked, Nakata was dating the cutest girl in the whole world and Kaede was making good progress. He had no problems. He was living a rich, fulfilling life. Nakata should have been as far as humanly possible from adolescent syndrome. Yet his predicament clearly said otherwise. Was this something like the incident with Tomoe, where he'd been dragged into somebody else's problem? He hadn't kicked any other girls' butts, though. As Sakata stood by the podium thinking, the rest of the class were steadily working through the exam results. I'd better see how far this goes. There might still be someone out there who could see me. Not caring that class was in session, Sakata opened the door and stepped out into the hall. The teacher didn't yell after him. None of his classmates sent shocked stares his way. He calmly opened the door over room 2-2. He slammed it on purpose, but nobody turned towards him. Same for 2-3 and 2-4. Rio was listening to the physics teacher, looking rather bored. Yuma was stifling a yawn, struggling to stay awake through the Japanese teacher's drone. He hit up every class in his year without a single person seeing him. Damn, so much for that. I was wondering, I was like, okay, his go-tos are going to be like Rio Futaba or going to be Kunimi, and hopefully one of them sees him. Because, like when it happened to Mai, Rio Futaba could still see her after at least a little bit of it going on, and I think same thing with Kunimi too, up until a certain point. All right, he left the last room, 2-9, and headed down to the stairs to 1-4, Tomoe's class. They kicked each other's butts before, and that gave him hope. Hello, he called, opening the door. He figured if Tomoe could see him, she'd be pretty shocked, so he could demonstrate some basic courtesy, but he needn't have bothered. First years were no different. No reaction at all. Nakata's entrance didn't make the teachers stop writing on the board, and the 36 first years didn't kick up a fuss. Tomeo was no different. Sakata peered at her 62% grade and she didn't look peeved at all. Shame. If Koga's out, this is pretty damn bad. That's true. It is bad because I remember when that happened in the Dreaming Girl movie, when like really nobody could see him at that point. She was the one that could actually still see him, and now she can't see him, so it's like fuck. Felt like she was the last one that could actually, his last hope, and she can't even see him. Um, but even as he said it, it didn't feel real. No wave of panic hit him. It seemed too late to be all shock. Well, guess I'll do what I can. He left Tomoe's class and headed for the entrance. Outside the offices, he stretched. The staff lady was sitting at the desk behind the office window, but she didn't look up when he passed. Think wandering around the halls while classes were in session would at least earn him a query. But he wasn't exactly here to talk to her, so he didn't mind. It was after the phones next to her desk. Sakata picked up one of the receivers and dropped in a 10 yen coin. He punched in an 11-digit number. He'd long since learned Mai's number by heart. He hit the last digit and put the receiver to his ear, but there was no dial tone. He hit the switch and tried again. Still nothing. He gave Nadaka's number a shot with the same result. The 10 yen coin went back in his pocket. Well, shit. Not much else he could do now. No signs of the situation improving or ever changing, or even changing. He'd learned nothing and figured nothing out. Maybe outside the school someone would see him, but he was already past being that optimistic. I was in Yamanashi filming a TV series. If he couldn't even place a call to her, there was no point hoping. It comes down to why. If he could figure that out, a solution might present itself. If he couldn't, there was nothing he could do. Once again, Sakata searched within for answers. At the very least, everyone had seen him yesterday. He and Kaede had visited their mother, and Mai had called that evening. The change that happened overnight. Had anything changed in that time? There was one thing that came to mind. One big change yesterday. His family reunited after 2 long years. Come on. I know it's that. It's got to be that. Come on. Quite frankly, there were a few things in life that were quite that big of a deal, but he couldn't see a connection to the adolescent syndrome. Family coming back together was certainly a major trigger. He'd taken that step the day before, and how was that a bad thing? After 2 long years, all the problems Kaede, and their parents had were finally moving toward a real resolution. Kaede had worked real hard for it, and their mother had likely overcome her share of struggles. Takata and their father had helped them through it, hoping their family could be together again someday, taking it one day at a time, and their wishes had finally started to come true. Takata just couldn't imagine that would lead to adolescent syndrome, but it was also true nothing else had happened to him. Emotions aside, based purely on the facts at hand, that was definitely the biggest difference between yesterday and today. They'd met their mother. I'd better go. Staying at school was not improving anything. He was out of options here. And he must still be with their mother. He'd have to check to see if she could see him. Takata went back up to 2-1. The English teacher was still going over the exam problems, but he sailed right past him and grabbed his bag. Leaving early, he said, and then was out the door. At the lockers, he changed into his shoes. He put his school slippers inside, closed the door, and felt a shiver run through his gut. He was all tensed up. But why? Takata didn't voice the answer, not because he didn't find one, but because he found it already waiting inside him. Meeting his mom made him anxious. He let that echo through his mind. His body had already known. He could feel the shock waves spreading out through him, rushing through every inch of him, like they were carried through his veins, weighing him down. He could feel his field of vision narrowing. It was hard to breathe. Turning his eyes away from the emotions that bound him, Sakata started walking. I know, I'm like, yeah, I'm not sure if my theory is like where it would be, but we'll see what ends up happening in that. Uh, I know I'm thinking because it's getting kind of late already, and I'm like thinking like, all right, I'm gonna end up ending the stream somewhat soon-ish, maybe around like 11 my time. It's already 10:41, but because I know I'm not gonna run through the rest of the story tonight. I'm probably gonna stop it when maybe I hit the 50% mark. I'm at 48% right now. But we'll see. Like this is getting fucking interesting, and I'm like, damn it, why do we have to why do we have to have time constraints? Damn it. All right, so we're on the third part now. The train from Fujisawa Station was so empty, almost no one was standing up. The morning rush had passed, but it was too early for lunch. The vibe on board was real laid back. Excuse me. Takata was the only one standing up in his car. There were still empty seats around, and he could easily have found a place to sit. Everyone loved sitting in corners, but there was still a few available. But he never considered it. He was too nervous. He huddled at the edge of the door frame, watching the landscape scroll by, doing his best to focus his mind outward. Digging deeper inside himself would mean facing the stress in the pit of his stomach. Would would mean figuring out just what that was. But staring out the window wasn't enough to make him forget how nervous he was about seeing his mother again. The proof? In his pocket, Sakata's hand was clenched tight around the key, the one his father had given him before he left last night. He stuck it in his key holder with the key to the Fujisawa apartment. To make sure he didn't lose it, he realized he had a death grip on the key. The train reached Yokohama Station and he got out. He tried to switch to his train pass and found the impression of the key imprinted on his palm. It was hard not to notice. Like the day before, he rode the Keihin Tohoku line for a single station, and switched to the Yokohama line at Higashi Kanagawa. Only 10 more minutes to his destination. This car was even emptier than the one on the Tokaido line. But once more, he didn't consider sitting down. Tension in his gut was too constricting. Thought standing made him feel marginally better. The train made several stops, but few people got on or off. With no signs of any hustle or bustle, the train reached Kozukwe Station. The doors opened and he slipped out through the gap. The first to disembark, he ran down the stairs, reaching the gates before anyone else, out the south entrance down to the main thoroughfare, then along that for a while. This was the path he'd taken yesterday. Been nervous then, too, but nothing like this. He could feel his breath growing short as he neared the house. Air came in, and he got no oxygen from it. He couldn't inhale more without exhaling. That frustrated him, throwing the whole rhythm of his breathing off. He walked slower, trying to get his emotions under control, but his legs felt funny, and he could barely walk. Like this wasn't his body, almost like someone else was in control. He saw the landmark and turned right into the alley, 5 more yards. He'd reached the building his father lived in. He could see the walls already, 4 more yards, 3, 2. He could see in the entrance now, and there. Ah, a gasp of surprise escaped his lips. People were coming out of the building, two of them. He knew both of them. One was Kaide, and the other was their mother. Kaide was clinging to their mother's arm, chattering away, seemed to be having a great time, grinning her head off. Their mother was smiling too. They must have been going shopping. They turned toward Sakata as they approached the main road. Once they got closer, he could hear them. For croquettes, you start by boiling potatoes, right? Yes, and once they're fully cooked, you mix them with sautéed ground beef and onions. They were almost on him. It's a lot of work, but I've got you to help me today, Kaide. Right, I'll do what I can. They were right here, less than 3 yards away. Sakata was standing stock still in the middle of the alley. No matter how into the topic they were, if they could see him at all, they would have by now. They'd have looked his way. It would be downright weird not to. There was no one here but the three of them. Kaide and their mother weren't exactly blending into the background, and neither was Sakata, but they just brushed right past him, chatting about croquettes so smoothly it was like he didn't exist at all. He turned, watching them move away, his mouth open, trying to call after them, but no words formed. He couldn't bring himself to say their names. He just stood there in the middle of the alley, watching his sister and mother round the corner and vanish from his sight. Just watch them go. That was when the fear hit him. He could feel tendrils of it growing in the pits of his stomach, entwining themselves throughout his body. Trying to shake that off, he turned back to the old workers' housing, taking the stairs two at a time to the third floor. He only stopped running when he was outside the door marked Azusagawa. Breathing heavily, he used his father's key he had given him the day before. Dragging his tired legs inside, he cast off his shoes. Couldn't be bothered to line them up. He'd just been here yesterday. The four of them had sat down in this living room together for the first time in 2 years. Yesterday the room had smelled unfamiliar, but today it was the opposite. They'd been warm, loving family again. For one day only, a day that mattered, he refused to believe that was the cause. A moment like that would never trigger adolescent syndrome, and yet he also couldn't imagine what else might be behind this. What happened must have been yesterday, when they'd seen their mother again, feeling a pang of guilt, like he was sneaking into a stranger's house. He opened a set of sliding doors and entered the next room over. A bare bones room with a tatami floor, a pair of futons folded in the corner. That must have been where Kaede and their mother had slept. The only other thing here was an old dresser with a mirror on top. Nakata found a notebook in front of the mirror, the same kind he used at home or at school. Your standard college-ruled notebook. There was nothing on the cover, so he had no idea what was inside until he opened it. But the moment he did, he knew it was their mother's diary. Neat letters on every page. In a hand he barely recognized. The first entry was more than 2 years old. Dates jumped a lot, leaving gaps as long as a month. The length of the entries varied too. Some filled the page, some ended after a line or two. Those were the majority. Kaide's getting bullied and I can't do anything. I'm failing my own daughter. That was the first page, and it hit him hard. Nakata had never heard what she felt or thought in her own words. Given the symptoms of Kaide's adolescent syndrome, there wasn't really time to casually sit and talk things over. Only now, with it right here, in plain words, did the sheer weight of it hit him. Every entry was filled with regret, showing how their mother had been at a complete loss as to how to help Kaide. The first half of the notebook was relentlessly bleak. I was never a mother. Damn. What would lead someone to write that? There was nothing before or after it. A lump stuck in his throat. Sakata felt like something was reaching up from the floor, threatening to drag him down. I told Kaide it would all be okay. Nothing is okay. But what else could I say? I'm a horrible mother. Every word felt like a stake through her heart, or through the heart, a pain in his chest that echoed through his whole body. But he didn't. But he didn't tear his eyes away. Didn't stop him from reading more. Perhaps couldn't would be more accurate. For the simple reason that he'd reached the back half and the entries began to change. I miss Kaede. I want to tell her how sorry I am, to be a proper mother to her. And Sakata wanted to know more about these feelings, if only to ease the remorse he felt for sneaking a peek at his mother's darkest moments, the hopes of ending things on a brighter note. But he was also motivated by a very different emotion, his own negative feelings. Something had grown all too obvious, a clear concern born from the words in the back half, something his mother's diary never mentioned, not him. Damn. Damn it. That shit sucks. At first, it was a small doubt, but the more he read, the stronger it got. When he hit March 15th yesterday, it became a certainty. Heidi's become a such a wonderful girl. She's really grown up. I'm so happy. This time, I'm going to be a mother to her, Kaide said. Kaide said we could do it together, the three of us living together. I'd love that. I'll have to make it happen. Fuck, that sucks, dude. That's shitty. Uh, damn. So she's just like, I knew it. It was like the family is just, Kaede, the mom, and the dad. Like Sakata's not a part of the family. She's not mentioning anything like at all with him. But I'm like maybe thinking it's because maybe it's only like that because Sakata feels that way or whatever, and or Sakata like didn't really make an effort to try to be a family either or something like that. But fuck, that sucks. Oh man. So, god damn it. Oh, that sucks so much. I feel for Sakata. God. I had to take like a little like pause for a second. Oh, Kartik, yeah, yeah, I do have work tomorrow. I have to get up and like I have to wake up in like 6 hours, something like that. But yeah. But reading this is worth like getting a little less sleep. I'll get some more sleep the next night because I work tomorrow and then I have the next day off. So I'm gonna work tomorrow, and then have the next day off so I can catch up on sleep then. But fuck, dude, I can't believe that. I'm really hoping that those like the stuff that she's putting in the diary are happening because of how Sakata's feeling or something he's doing that's not like the greatest or something, and those aren't her actual feelings because God, if those are her actual feelings and she's just like completely forgetting Sakata, then fuck, that sucks. Like I don't know how you would even get around that or like how the hell like they're supposed to resolve that, Like that's crazy. Yeah. Like he didn't have that heartfelt, reunion with his mom like Kaede did. He's just like almost just came there and was like an audience member to just watch, them two kind of have their reunion. Um but, him and his mom haven't seen each other in 2 years too. Like where's their interaction? Where's their, heartfelt reunion? Like nothing like that really happened. It was just like, all right, like just let you two do your thing. Yeah. Man, that sucks. Alright, he didn't know what to say. He wasn't feeling much of anything. There was a name his mother's diary had never once mentioned. That name was Sakata. He wasn't sure when that had started, but seeing this, it made things obvious. Yesterday. He hadn't been imagining it. It wasn't no coincidence. It hadn't just happened. He noticed it now. He knew the truth. All day long, her eyes had never once met his, not even once. Her eyes never saw him. Her smile never once turned his way. Her every smile their mother managed had been for Kaide or their father. That explains it. A chill ran down his spine, his heart shaking, shivering in the cold. Not because his mother couldn't perceive him, that wasn't that big of a deal. What truly scared Sakata was that they'd been together for hours and he hadn't even noticed that she never once said his name. He'd been there acting like part of the family without noticing or that without once realizing that his own mother couldn't see him. How long had it been like that? Since she last perceived him? Since she forgot he existed? And he'd been acting normal, unaware that was even a thing, convinced he was happy. It didn't matter how long. There was no use wondering about the past. What mattered was now. How did he feel about his mother? What emotions did Sakata have? That felt like like a much bigger deal. Nataka had asked him once, "How do you feel about your mom?" Sakata had given her some sort of answer, probably something dumb like, "I think she's my mom," and he meant it at the time. He hadn't been lying to her. There's got to be more. Love them, hate them, can't stand them, wish they'd get off your back, etc. He'd said probably all of those, Naduka had been dealing with her own mom-based issues, so he'd almost certainly been playing to that. But that wasn't all. You could only admit loving or hating someone after genuinely feeling that way, after those emotions had passed through him, gone out of the other end, and been left behind in the past. At best, Sakata had already gotten over his mother's absence, but just like that, but that likely wasn't the truth. It was more like he'd compartmentalized it, convinced himself to give up. He and the new Kaide had moved to Fujisawa, and fending for themselves was all he could handle. He'd made up his mind that there was nothing he could do about their mother's condition, and he'd sealed away every thought of it, unconsciously cutting her loose, abandoning her. And 2 years later, his mother's absence was normal for him. He'd gotten used to it, even found it comfortable. That was why he had no clue how to come back, how to talk to her again. He didn't have those answers. That was why this was happening to him. And she couldn't even see him, couldn't tell he was there. The world had taken stock of their problem and altered itself accordingly. Now nobody could tell Sakata was there, proving that his mother's perceptions weren't wrong, making it so his relationship with her was free of all deception. She'd brought Sakata into this world, and if she couldn't perceive him, that arguably meant he really didn't exist. Stabbing pain ran through his side, right where his new scar would a wound around his flank. He rolled up his shirt, and that white mark was still there, from his side to his belly button. Or maybe the other way around. Given the situation, it probably started at the belly button, where he'd been linked to his mother at birth, like umbilical cord stuff. He touched it, but felt nothing, like the pain was all in his mind. Before his darker thoughts could swallow him any further, he quietly closed his mother's diary. He put it back by the mirror where he'd found it. "This is so not funny," he said, but he couldn't help but laugh. He let out a long breath, one with no clear emotion behind it. It didn't even count as a sigh. It was just an exhalation. His heart was silent, like wasn't even beating. Felt like he was handling their life in Fujisawa pretty well, living apart from his parents, away from the only home he'd ever known, starting over in a place where they knew nobody. Maybe he hadn't gotten everything right, but he'd given himself a passing grade. He'd done well and never doubted that. But there'd been a sacrifice behind that self-satisfaction. He'd earned that passing grade at the expense of his mother's existence. Can you blame me? What choice has he had? His emotions were a pitch-black vortex whirling around in his insides. It tormented him, keeping him stuck in place. This wasn't regret over the choices he'd made. He'd done everything he could. He'd suffered, agonized, and cried over what he couldn't do. But Sakata knew he'd accepted that, gotten over it, and become who he was today. He'd learned that true happiness lay in the little joys of life and begun striving toward kindness. He knew what mattered and had people who mattered to him. But now he'd learned that might have been a mistake, and having that error shoved in his face was not something he could just accept. He wanted to believe he'd made the right choice, that he'd done nothing wrong, but he felt like that desire was a sign of a deeper flaw, and it unsettled him. To approve of his own actions meant accepting that he'd cut his mother loose. Sorting out his emotions was impossible. Fully coming to terms with either side of this issue was beyond him at the moment. He couldn't decide which way to go, and his feet stayed glued to the tatami. Eventually there was a noise from the entrance, a click of a lock turning, and a voice calling, "We're home." Kaide came in, grocery bags rustling. Sakata went back into the living room and found his mother and sister setting laden grocery bags on the dining room table. "That was so heavy, Kaide. Are your arms okay?" "I can handle it. Gotten very strong. Anyone my age can carry this much." The bags were full of potatoes, ground meat, and onions, and breadcrumbs, flour, eggs, tonkatsu sauce, even lettuce and tomatoes. Their mother was already telling Kaide what they needed to go in the fridge. Once they'd put everything away, she said, "Should we get started?" Okay. Oh, shit. Alright, okay. Kaide was all smiles, and their mother put an apron on her. "I can tie it myself," Kaide protested, but she didn't try to stop her. They started cooking. Ingredients for croquettes had to be prepared. First, they washed and peeled the potatoes. Kaide used a peeler while their mothers smoothly peeled the whole skin in one go with a knife. "You're so good at this, Mom." Kaede was comparing her own work with her mom's. Her potato was all bumpy. If you practice, you'll get this good in no time. Their mother smiled, pleased by the praise. Once the potatoes were peeled, they chopped them into chunks so they'd cook them or cook through, then put them in a bowl of cold water. Why do we do this? It makes them taste better. Huh? While the potatoes were soaking, they chopped the onions and fried those up with the ground beef. Once that was done, they boiled the potatoes. When the potatoes were fully cooked, they used a big spoon to crush them. Heidi kept going. They're so hot. It was plain to see that she was having fun. Once they mixed in the meat and the onions, the croquette filling was complete. Now they just had to ball that up, coat it, and deep fry it. As they worked, their conversation never faltered. Kaede had never made croquettes before, was struggling, but their mother kept smiling and coaching her through it. Anyone could see how close they were. Takata watched the whole thing from the living room. Neither of them ever noticed he was there. They got the rice cooker going, made a salad, had everything ready for dinner, but never spotted him. It was the same when Kaede was helping take in the laundry from the rack on the balcony. They sat together, watching the evening news and waiting for Kaede and Sakata's father to get home, without either of them realizing Sakata existed. Neither of them ever mentioned him. Their dad just got back just past 6. Three of them sat down at the dining room table together and ate croquettes. They're good. They are. Kaede worked real hard on them. Everyone had a good time. Nobody said anything so funny they had to laugh out loud, but their dad, their mom, Kaede all enjoyed themselves, smiling happily the whole time. They were the kind of ideal family you would see in a refrigerator commercial. Nakata had long hoped they could be like this again one day. Only one thing was wrong with it. Sakata had no place here, and that made all the difference. Without a word, he left the living room. He didn't know what to say. He put his shoes on. He opened the door quietly and left without his family noticing. As the door closed behind him, he heard laughter from the living room. He took the key out of his pocket, put it in the lock. For a second he hesitated, then he turned the key as if locking something away in his heart. It made a metallic click. Damn. Yeah, Sakata's dad is better than Sakata's mom. Yeah, I don't know. Um, yeah, that I don't know. That's what I'm. Well, I guess I think yeah, his dad just came back. Like I'm pretty sure that just happened right now, right? Just got back past 6, and yeah, they were sitting down and eating a second ago. I was wondering if Sakata's dad was gonna be the one that actually saw him. Um, yeah, because I was like, damn, because that sucks. Like everybody can't see him. At least when the My Sakurajima thing happened, somebody was at least able to see them for some time. Like the you know Mai had at least some people. And then in the situation in the Dreaming Girl movie too, at least at that one point, when Sakata, no one could see him or whatever. At that one point, Koga was able to see him at least at some point, so he had somebody. But it seems like he has literally nobody, like nobody to help him, like nobody to hear him out. Like how is he supposed to get around this? It's gonna be tough for him to like figure out a way to do it or what's gonna happen with it. But man, yeah, it's a fucking tough ass situation. Hey, what's going on? What's going on, Void? How you doing? But crap, man. Yeah, that shit's tough. I can't believe that that's going on with him right now. Like, but it seems like it's of his own doing, and he seems like he kind of wants to keep the thought in his head of like he was doing what he could. He was doing all the right things. He had to do some of the things that he did. But at the same time too, like he kind of seems like he just gave up on his mom and he was just like at the point of like, okay, she might not ever, in the mindset of like she might not ever get better, so let's just kind of like forget about it a little bit and then just keep doing my own thing, making friends and doing all that stuff, making friends and helping all the people and doing all the stuff he was doing. It was good, but still at the end of the day, he's doing all that stuff and like kind of leaving his mom on the back burner and not really too invested in that, like it would come up when his dad would bring it up and not he wasn't the one like actively trying to figure out what was going on with his mom, trying to see if she was okay, go visit or whatever maybe or something like that. He wasn't putting in that effort. He was just like kind of like cut ties with it. So yeah, it seems like it's on him pretty much. Depends on his own mind. Yeah, yeah, it seems like he's like isolating his mom. Like he just kind of like, all right, like let's just forget about that kind of, not because he doesn't care about his mom, but more so of like thinking, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the phrasing for it, just like thinking like, okay, he has other stuff to do or whatever, he has to figure out some other things, but then it just got way too comfortable in his head, like, okay, this is the norm, you know? This is normal, like everyday life, she's not here anymore. We're doing our own thing and, taking care of school stuff or, taking care of Kaede, dealing with other adolescent syndrome things, and just kind of like making it seem like it's normal that his mom is just not in the picture anymore. Um, so yeah, I think that's kind of what's going on. But man, yeah, it's some tough stuff. Freaking crazy. um, but I think I might end it there for tonight's stream. And I'll try to pick it up again maybe tomorrow, because tomorrow I do work. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. I don't know. Maybe I'll be like tired and not be able to do it, but um, maybe I'll be able to do it tomorrow because I don't work the next day after tomorrow. So I'll be able to like stay up late or whatever and do another stream. But man, yeah, it's some crazy stuff. Uh, Average enjoyer, man. I appreciate you for stopping on by. Have a good night. Yeah, I appreciate you. Have a good one. Get some good sleep, man. Get some good rest. Sorry, I'm like still trying to like mull over things that are happening in this and like all the all the heartache and things and just emotional roller coaster stuff. Um, but man, yeah, some crazy stuff. Yeah, we're about 56% of the way through this right now. We're at page 102 out of 184. I try to, yeah, I know I streamed last week and then yeah, streaming today or whatever. I'm thinking of maybe doing it weekly, but I don't know. I'm at like a point right now where I'm like, this stuff is way too interesting. Um, this stuff is like super interesting, so I kind of want to do it, but I'll let you guys know. I'll keep you guys updated, like in the community tab, like okay, like I'll maybe be able to do it this week, or like this day or something like that. But yeah, it's just I'm like hooked on it. I want to jump back into it, but if time constraints play a part in it and I can't, then it is what it is. I'll at least try to do it at least once a week and stuff, but we'll see how that plays out. Excuse me. But yeah, it was crazy, crazy read through so far of the stuff that we've been kind of going through. Really getting to like the meat of what's going on. I mean, we're getting into the meat of what's going on with Sakata right now, and this isn't even what's happening with like the little Mai situation. We don't even know what's going on with that kind of, because this seems like it's a whole different thing. That's Sakata's own adolescent syndrome. Oh man. But we'll see what happens with this and how this ends up getting resolved, how what even is going on with the little Mai Sakurajima thing. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that stuff in the near future when we continue this going forward and stuff. I'm excited for it. It's been some crazy stuff. A lot of heart-wrenching things going on so far, pulling at the heartstrings. But yeah, as Bunny Girl Senpai or as the Rascal Does Not Dream series typically does to us. But yeah, Kartik, you got to study, man. All right, dude. Peace. Have a good night. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one. Average Enjoyer again. Have a good one too. Void. Have a good one. I forgot who else was in here too. Let me scroll back up. I know there's a couple other people. Abuta fan. I hope you have a good one, man. Take it easy. Grease Monk, have a good one. Yeah, take it easy. Have a good night. Get some rest, y'all. I don't know where you guys are at. If it's daytime for you guys or if it's nighttime. Cooley, have a good one too. Get some good rest. Have a good rest of your guys' days. I appreciate you all for hopping in. But yeah, I'll stream pretty soon. Pick up where I left off with this, so we can get some more of this greatness and see where everything kind of ends up shaking up. But yeah, appreciate you all for coming through. Make sure to like the stream if you guys can. Helps me out a bunch. And if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, then yeah, subscribe. That'd be great. Appreciate it. Help the channel grow and everything. And make sure to turn on channel notifications too, because then you'll get notified for whenever I do upload a video or for whenever I do end up going live too, to continue the read through of this stuff. But yeah, I hope you all have a great rest of the day or night wherever you guys live, and